The knock came just before dawn, not the hurried kind of a desperate traveler, nor the soft tap of a neighbor with news. No, this one was deliberate. 3 slow raps against the heavy oak door of a half-finished ranch house that still smelled of fresh-cut pine. Inside, John Calhoun stirred from his chair by the fire. He hadn't slept much in years, not since the girl's words had cut him down like a bad steer. "You're too poor for me," she'd said, standing on the church steps with her fine shoes and borrowed pride. He'd carried those words like a brand on his skin. Now, after a decade of dust, sweat, and deals struck under candlelight, John owned more land than any man for 3 counties. The house behind him rose tall with white stone pillars hauled by wagon, the windows framed with glass, so clean the morning sun shimmered off it like water. His cattle stretched across the valley, a sea of moving wealth that groaned and bellowed at first light. Still, that knock froze him. He opened the door. There she was. Clara Mayfield, the same proud tilt to her chin, though her eyes no longer danced with the careless fire of youth. She was thinner now, wrapped in a faded shawl that didn't belong in the crisp chill of morning. Behind her, nothing. No buggy, no rider, no suitcase, just the wide road leading back toward town, where gossip traveled faster than a gunshot. "John," she whispered, voice trembling against the wind, "please, don't send me away." For a long moment, the only sound was the creak of the new porch beams above them. John studied her. The woman who'd once walked past him like he was dirt, now standing on his doorstep, her cheeks wet. He thought of the nights he'd built this place with blistered hands, the cattle runs where men died beside him, the contracts signed under lamps while others drank away their futures. He thought of the vow he'd made, staring at her, or a silhouette as she vanished years ago. One day, I'll build a place she can't ignore. And now she was here, crying. John's jaw tightened. "Why?" was all he said. Clara's lips parted, but before a word left, the wind carried another sound, hoofbeats, fast, closing in. John turned his head toward the ridge, riders, not friends. And Clara stepped back, her face paling, as if she knew exactly who was coming. The riders came hard down the ridge, their silhouettes cutting sharp against the rising sun. Dust plumed behind them, 6 or 7 men at least, the kind who didn't ride early unless there was blood or money at stake. John's hand drifted toward the Winchester, leaning just inside the doorway. Clara noticed and shook her head, quick and desperate. "No, John, don't." He studied her face, the fear in it. A woman who once looked down on him now trembled like a child on his porch. "You know him?" John asked. His voice was steady, though the thundering hoofbeats were already rattling the porch rails. Her silence was answer enough. "John," she tried again, but her throat caught. He could have shut the door right then, bolted it, left her outside to meet whoever came. The ranch had men enough, rifles enough. His empire would stand. But that would mean watching her, the same woman who had once crushed him with her dismissal, dragged down that long dirt road by men who didn't look like they came to talk. Inside the hall, a servant boy appeared, no older than 15, wiping his hands on an apron. "Mr. Calhoun?" "Back inside," John ordered. The boy froze, eyes darting to Clara, then to the riders spilling into the yard, reining up in a rough half-circle. Spurs jingled, reins jerked, horses snorting steam into the morning chill. The lead rider, a broad man with a scar that pulled his lip into a permanent sneer, leaned forward in his saddle. "Calhoun!" he barked. "We're here for—" "The woman. Hand her over and we'll be on our way." Clara's grip tightened on John's coat sleeve. Her whisper barely rose above the pounding in his chest. "Please, don't let them take me." John glanced at the mansion behind him, the house that symbolized every long night, every insult swallowed, every deal struck with men who'd rather see him fail. This was his kingdom, his wealth, his proof, and now it stood balanced on the decision of whether to protect the very woman who once abandoned him, or save his empire from whatever storm she carried in her shadow. Scarlip leaned lower, voice rough with impatience. "Don't be a fool, rancher. You got cattle to tend, fences to mend. Ain't worth dying over a woman who don't belong to you." John's silence stretched. Dust swirled between them. And from the road behind, another sound rose. The distant bell of the town's church tolling, slow and heavy, carrying a warning. Rumors had already started spreading. "Last chance, Calhoun," Scarlip growled, shifting in the saddle. The other riders fanned out, hands brushing holsters, rifles loose across their thighs. John stepped off the porch, slow, deliberate, boots crunching the gravel. He didn't raise his rifle, didn't even touch it. His calm was the kind men learned from years of branding iron and storm, steady, unshaken. "This is my land," he said evenly, "and you don't call the shots here." Clara gasped behind him. Scarlip spat into the dirt. "Then you're choosing her fate over your own cattle. Brave, but stupid." One of the men chuckled darkly. Another tightened the reins of his restless horse. The whole yard felt coiled, ready to snap. Then the church bell tolled again in the distance, slow and hollow. The riders stiffened, uneasy. John caught it. They weren't just here for Clara. They feared something bigger. "You're running from the law," John muttered, realization sharpening. Scarlip's eyes narrowed. He didn't confirm, didn't deny. But the way his men shifted in their saddles told enough. Outlaws, hunted and desperate. And Clara, somehow caught in their oar, bit. "Give her over," Scarlip snarled, his voice louder now, enough for the ranch hands who had drifted to the edges of the yard, rifles half raised but waiting on John's word. "Or we burn this pretty house of yours to the ground." The tension thickened. The cattle beyond the fences stirred uneasily, their low calls mixing with the stamping of horses. Every sound carried weight. The creak of leather, the metallic click of a hammer pulled back. Clara's sharp breath as she gripped the porch rail. "John," she whispered, "they'll kill you." His jaw flexed. He thought of the empire he'd built, the long climb from ridicule to respect. He thought of the girl who once left him in the dust, now begging for shelter. But the decision was made the moment those riders stepped into his yard. "You'll get nothing here," John said coldly. A rifle cracked, not from the ranch, but from the riders. The shot buried itself in the porch post inches from Clara's head, splinters stinging her cheek. She cried out, ducking down. The standoff exploded. Ranch hands raised rifles, outlaws drew guns, horses reared. And through the chaos, Clara darted forward, clutched John's arm, and whispered something that made his blood run cold. "They're not here just for me. They're here because of what I took." Gunsmoke still hung over the yard when night fell. The riders had pulled back after the first exchange. A warning skirmish, not a full fight. But everyone knew they'd return. Men like that didn't forgive, and they didn't forget. Inside the mansion's parlor, lamplight flickered across velvet drapes and polished wood. Clara sat hunched on the edge of a chair, her shawl draped around trembling shoulders. John poured 2 glasses of whiskey, setting one in front of her. She stared at it, untouched. "You'd best start talking," he said. His voice carried no anger, only the steady weight of a man who demands dead truth. Clara's hands twisted in her lap. For a long while, she couldn't meet his eyes. Then finally, "I stole from them. Money, documents, proof of their robberies. I thought—" She swallowed. John leaned back, studying her. "The life you chose," he repeated quietly. Her eyes lifted, brimming with tears. "I was wrong, John, about everything. I thought money meant safety. I thought walking away from you would buy me a future. Instead, it sold me to men who'd sooner bury me than pay me." The silence between them stretched, broken only by the crackle of the fire. John thought of the nights he'd bled into the soil of his land, building something from nothing. He thought of the sting of her words years ago, how they drove him harder than hunger or thirst ever could. And here she was, admitting her ruin. "You think hiding here will fix it?" he asked, her chin lifted, trembling but defiant. "No, I came because you were the only man I ever knew who wouldn't hand me over, even if he hated me, and I was right." The glass of whiskey in front of her shook with the force of her hands. She reached for it, hesitated, then set it aside untouched. "I don't want the drink. I want a chance, even if it's only to leave this world knowing someone once cared for me." John exhaled, long and slow. Against every scar she'd left on him, there it was again. The pull of her, the ache of a first love that had never truly burned out. From the window, he saw lanterns flickering on the ridge. The riders were back, shadows stretching long against the horizon. Hope flickered in the room, so did danger. The riders came just after midnight, torches bobbing down the ridge like angry fireflies. The mansion loomed against the dark sky, its stone walls glowing faint under moonlight. Inside, every ranch hand was armed, rifles peeking from upstairs windows, revolvers gripped tight behind doors. John stood at the center of the porch, Winchester in hand. Clara stepped beside him, pale but steady, shawl wrapped close. Scarlip rode forward, torchlight carving hard lines across his scarred face. "La, St. Chance Calhoun," he barked. "Hand her over, and we leave this ranch standing. Keep her, and we turn it all to ash." The men behind him cheered low and ugly. John's voice cut through them, cold as iron. "This house was built on sweat, not surrender. You want her? You'll have to come through me, and every man standing behind these walls." Scarlip sneered. "So be it." The first shot cracked the night. Bullets ripped into porch beams, torches flared, horses screamed. The ranch erupted, gunfire rattling windows, sparks spitting from stone. Ranch hands fired back with deadly precision. Years of defending cattle herds giving them the discipline of soldiers. Clara clutched John's arm as lead whined past. "John, they'll kill us both!" But John didn't move. He took aim, fired once. Scarlip jerked in the saddle, torch tumbling from his hand. Chaos followed. Outlaws wheeled in panic, horses scattering, 2 men down in the dirt. The rest fired wildly before bolting into the night, swallowed by the ridges and silence. Smoke curled over the yard. The gunfire faded, leaving only the groans of wounded men and the echo of the church bell far in town. John lowered his rifle. His men emerged, shaken but alive. Clara still gripped him, trembling, her tears hot against the cold night. "You saved me," she whispered. John looked at her, really looked. She wasn't the girl who once left him on church steps. She was worn, broken, scarred by choices. But there was truth in her eyes now, not pride. "I didn't save you," he said quietly. "I saved what's mine, this land, these men, this house." He paused, then softer. "Whether you're part of it, that's for you to prove." Her chin quivered, but she nodded, the weight of his words sinking deep. Years later, townsfolk spoke of the night outlaws tried to take Calhoun's ranch and failed. They spoke, too, of the woman who came back crying on the porch of the man she once scorned. Some said she found redemption there, working beside him in silence and humility. Others said she drifted on, carrying his mercy like a lantern in the dark. But every evening, as the sun bled red over the valley, one could see John Calhoun sitting on his porch, rifle across his knees, mansion at his back, the final frame of a man who built his kingdom from dust and never bowed again. A lone rocking chair creaking on the wide porch, framed against a crimson western sunset.